stuff in the background while I'm recording this video, I'm sorry. It's late at night when I'm recording this. I just wanted to get this win out of the way. The Washington Wizards, man. The Washington Wizards. Last year, they were 35-47, 12th in the East. And as I did for the Spurs as well, when I was doing my research for this video, I got their depth chart, I had some notes, and it's rough. I mean, they made a lot of trades. Generally they made good. The direction was definitely better this offseason. The direction they're going in is a lot better than the one they've been in for the past few years. Bradley Beal has been on the team, and they've tried to somewhat build around him to try and win some games, but in the end, it really just hasn't worked. And they finally gave up on the Bradley Beal, just building a team around him. They traded Kristaps to Boston. They traded Bradley to, if I remember correctly, the Suns. I don't know why it took me. They traded Bradley Beal to the Suns. They traded Chris Paul, who they got in the Bradley Beal trade, to the Warriors. And in total, they ended up with Jordan Poole, Danilo Gallinari, and second-round picks. Not a great get-back, but they did take Bilal Coulibaly in the draft, who is actually decent. So there's hope there if you believe in Bilal Coulibaly. But yeah, it was an interesting offseason for the Wizards. This team is still horrible. They're way worse than last year, especially because they lost Bradley Beal and Kristaps, who were the two saving graces of this team. And I mean, they still kept Kyle Kuzma, and they got Jordan Poole, and they also added Tyus Jones, those three are all decent players. I forgot to mention they did get Tyus Jones back from one of those trades. But yeah, those three are all pretty good players, but not enough to make you a play-in team. Not enough to make you a barely out of the play-in team. I think this team is going to be the worst team in the league with a 15-67 record, 15th in the East. In the last video, I said that a core of Victor Wembanyama, Keldon Johnson, and Devin Vassell, if they were in the East, they might be a bit better. And now that I look at the standings and look at the teams that I have here, I don't know if they'd be a bit better. Because looking at this Wizards team, the difference between the Wizards team and the Spurs team, although I do think the Spurs team is better, it's not a huge gap. But still, it's this team, both teams are horrible. And both teams are definitely, in my opinion, guaranteed going to be the worst teams in their conferences. I mean, if Jordan Poole, because I did see a post on Instagram, a way less credible source of information, but I did see a post, and it was comparing the James Harden trade to this trade. So, if you remember correctly, back in, I think it was 2012 or 2013, after the Thunder lost in the finals to the Heat, James Harden, they traded him to the Rockets and got back, I don't even know what they got back, but they traded him to the Rockets, and back then James Harden was just a sixth man, and he was doing really good for his role, but he wasn't like a star player. And then he went to Houston, became the first option, and immediately started spazzing, and became one of the greatest players of all time. And there is a chance that could happen with Jordan Poole, because if you look at the pattern, Jordan Poole was on a championship contending team that actually won a championship. He was in a six-man role, and he got traded away to a different team. He's now the number one option, where before the number one option was Curry. For Harden, the number one option on those teams was either Westbrook or KD, probably KD, because Westbrook was still pretty young. But now with Jordan Poole on the Warriors, the number one option was Steph Curry. And those are two top, 15, 20 players of all time. And then when you lead those teams, you have a much bigger opportunity. And although Curry did get injured for a good amount of the time in the last year, and when Jordan Poole came in to take those minutes, he actually did play pretty deep. Or I can't even remember what he did. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of times that I'd be trying to watch as much basketball as I can, but life happens, and sometimes I can't watch as much. But I do know that Jordan Poole did sub in for Curry for a good amount of last year. And of course, he has a bigger opportunity now, and you can see him capitalizing on that, I guess. Capitalizing? Is that the right word? I don't know what word to use. You can see him actually using that role to just go crazy and become an all-star caliber, superstar caliber player. But you could also see him just being Jordan Poole. So, the way I see it, you really shouldn't have any expectations for anybody on this team to do anything, because this team is bad. Jordan Poole is a great player, but when he's the best player on your team, I don't know. Compared, and it's not even just Jordan Poole. Compared to the rest of the teams in both conferences, even if I have right below here the Magic, I'm gonna do a preview on them in a few weeks or days, we'll see. If I compare the Magic's depth, or the Magic's depth. If I compare Orlando's depth to the Wizards' depth, it's the Wizards are looking rough, man. I mean, off the bench, if I look at their full depth chart, I'm not gonna read out everybody, but their starting lineup would be Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, Deni Avdija, Kyle Kuzma, and Daniel Gafford. At least that's what I think they would start. And then off the bench, DeLon Wright, Landry Shamet, Corey Kispert. There is Danilo Gallinari, but he's going to be injured for a good amount of time, so we'll see what happens with him. And Mike Muscala. And then you also have Johnny Davis, Bilal Coulibaly, some other notable players here. But overall, this team is not good. So, I mean, they have some decent young talent, and of course there's the stuff with Denny and Corey Kispert, who both are guys who I actually did like coming into the drafts that they came into. Like, when they were being drafted, I was like, yeah, these guys are actually pretty good. And they haven't really done as much as I'd expect from them. I mean, this could be their year, especially now that Bradley Beal and Kristaps are gone. And of course, Jordan Poole and Kuzma are still there to take a good amount of the shots. But then he could actually break out, because now the ball is going to be in Tyus Jones and Jordan Poole's hand a good amount of time. But he still could have an extra opportunity to shine, because those two stars aren't there anymore. And when you don't have star players on your team, it leaves more opportunity for the role players to shine out. And the same thing goes for Corey Kispert. I mean, he's not the type of guy who would have the ball in his hands most of the time, but he could, especially, that actually helps him in this situation, because you have Jordan Poole, you have Tyus Jones, you have DeLon Wright, you have even Deni Avdija, who are all pretty decent playmakers, who, if you're a guy like Corey Kispert, you would actually want to have those guys around you, because then you could be outside on the three-point line, catch and shoot, and I mean, that could definitely help his game a lot, because he's that type of guy. I think as a catch and shoot shooter, Corey Kispert can be deadly in this league. So if he actually plays like the idea of Corey Kispert that I have in my head, you get who I'm trying to. Just a good catch and shoot wing who could catch the ball, shoot it. I mean, I don't expect much from him on the defensive side of the ball, but if he can play defense, that's cool as well. I just want these guys on the team to take this year to develop, improve their games, take the opportunity that's been given to them, and hoop. And the only worry I really do have about this team is Bilal Coulibaly. Coming into the draft, I didn't really know what to think about him, because he played on the same team as Victor Wembanyama, and then, I mean, you can see it that way and be like, ooh, maybe Victor's getting all the hype. Maybe this guy's actually really good too, and we just haven't been paying attention. And that could be the case. But I don't know. Because, especially, he seems like I've heard from a lot of people he seems like a project player, and I don't know for sure, because from what I've seen from him, he's actually been you know what? I'm actually going to pull this up right now, because I'm curious, I want to, if you don't know, I had a mock draft, and I wrote up a scouting report, and I did have one on Bilal Coulibaly. So, he's a forward for France, 6'7", 230 pounds, 18 years old. My comparisons for him were a less defensive Jonathan Isaac, or young Giannis. Very very comparisons actually, but his strengths are he's fast and long, a good finisher, great fast break player, pretty good shooter, can handle the ball very well, and that adds to his playmaking. He's great at getting blocks and pretty good at getting steals. So overall, he's a pretty good player. The only really worries about him where he has a skinnier frame. I'm wondering how he'll deal with NBA defense and contact, and if injuries will be a problem. So these are basically the same things that people had for guys like Giannis and Jonathan Isaac coming out of the draft. And I mean, of course, those things, he could change those things. He could bulk up like Giannis did, because we saw what happened with Giannis. Giannis wasn't big like that coming into his rookie year, but now he's one of the strongest guys in the league. So it's definitely, Bilal Coulibaly is definitely an interesting guy, and I'm curious about how he's going to play this year. I just don't know how much opportunity he's going to get, because if he really is a project player, if the Wizards are starting Denny and Corey over him, who both play the same position as Bilal, I mean, they could run Corey at the 2, or they could run Denny at the 4. I mean, that could actually work. But if the Wizards don't do that and they run Denny and Corey both at the 3, I'm wondering how much will that stunt Bilal Coulibaly's growth? I'm wondering how much will he suffer from that? Because at the end of the day, I want all these guys to succeed. All these guys that I watched their highlights, of before the draft, I want all of them to succeed. You know what I'm saying? I want all of them to reach that level that all these other players who have been drafted and gone to the NBA and become superstars, I want them to be good. With Bilal Coulibaly, I've been saying his name like 20 times this entire video. I don't know how I've actually gotten enough smoothly every single time, but with him, he has a bunch of potential, just like all the other guys in this draft. But the thing we have to see is if that potential actually comes out. And when it comes to project players like this, you can't expect much from them, especially in their rookie year. And if my player comparisons for him were Giannis and a less defensive Jonathan Isaac, not old Giannis, young Giannis. So if we're thinking like a young Giannis at the beginning of his career wasn't much. Like he could shoot a bit, he could play a bit of defense, but he wasn't that impressive overall. He couldn't really handle the ball well. He just wasn't, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't at the level that he is now. Because we could see, if we saw Bilal would reach that level, bet. But I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see. We'll definitely see. But it's definitely hard to read. I can't hold Giannis standards to him because Giannis is one of the greatest players of all time. But Bilal Coulibaly is, he's an interesting player, and I want to see what he does on this Wizards team. I'm hoping to watch a lot more of basketball in general, but especially Wizards basketball, because there's a few guys on this team, specifically Jordan Poole, Denny Avdija, Corey Kispert, and Bilal Coulibaly, who I'm interested in, and also Johnny Davis, low-key. I believed in Johnny Davis when he got drafted, and then he didn't really do anything, and that happens a lot to Wizards players. I think it was 2020, Denny Avdija, 2021, Corey Kispert, 2022, Johnny Davis, and now 2023, Bilal Coulibaly. All three of the guys before him have had tons of potential, and although they're still young, they still have time. So far, they haven't really done much. And Bilal, I'm hoping he takes those opportunities and actually ends up as a great player. I mean, we'll have to see what happens. He's definitely a different build from all the other guys they drafted, because all the other guys they drafted are great. I mean, Denny has a huge amount of potential, but like Johnny Davis and Corey Kispert, Johnny Davis did have a good amount of potential. He still has a good amount of potential, but Corey Kispert specifically, I see these guys more as like lower, if anything, borderline all-stars, but for the most part, like really good role players. And Bilal Coulibaly is a guy who I think actually could have star potential if he gets the right opportunity. So I'm really hoping they play him. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm really hoping they play him. But overall, really, this team is horrible. In my notes, if you want me to read out my notes, Poole Party All-Star, not a good team at all. Some decent young talent, but horrendous big depth. Their backup center is Mike Muscala. This team is not winning more than 20 games, but I put them at 15. So that's about all I have to say about them. We'll see what happens. I'm specifically interested in Bilal and Jordan Poole. Maybe I should do a thing where I say, guess how many games of this team I'm going to watch. I can't really guarantee I'm going to watch much, though, because I'd be having a busy schedule, man. I have other things to do. But yeah, that's about it. If you enjoyed, first of all, more season previews coming tomorrow. Yesterday we had the Spurs one. Today we have the Wizards one. At least this is when it should be releasing. And then tomorrow, probably the Rockets. Maybe a different team. We'll see. But yeah, that's about it. I was gonna make a joke with this earlier. The reason I was just wearing pajamas because I'm gonna go to bed soon. But the reason I'm wearing pajamas is because this is how I'm gonna be feeling watching this team. That's so corny. Okay, I'm done. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.